Hello, welcome to Good Games Well Played, episode 175. I'm Clint, aka JCM. With us this week is Isli.
Yo.
He's back. He's been out a couple weeks. Usually when people are gone, it's always like, oh, you probably got a lot to talk about game-wise, but I'm sure you weren't doing a whole lot of gaming while you were gone, so...
No, it wasn't the most chill trip, so
Nope,
no
not at all.
gaming.
Yeah, no gaming. Not even some little in-flight entertainment, but... and yeah, no Zaya. Zaya unfortunately had an appointment. Probably won't be able to make it, so... but yeah, let's just jump straight into it. The big news this week, probably biggest news in a while, is that Sony pulled Concord from online stores, refunded all purchases, and closed the servers. Obviously, the game didn't sell too well. Analysts are saying probably about 25,000 units, primarily on PlayStation.
Which is a crazy small amount for how long it was in development for.
Yeah, there was what was a little frustrating too was there was mixed messaging behind the dev team. Someone on Twitter said 8 years, but it wasn't. But Firewalk was only around for 5 years, so it's it clearly couldn't have been in production for 8 years. And then someone later clarified the idea came up 8 years ago, but we didn't start working on it until obviously Firewalk became a studio. So it's but people kept reporting on it, and then the problem is too, other podcasts at other outlets record, but they don't release until a couple of days later, but they don't amend in the recording when they say, and it's been in development for 8 years. I feel whenever articles get updated, it should be you should make sure you're, as a games journalist, keeping up with all those updates and not assuming there's new information. But anyways, yeah, it's long production. It's their first game. That was announced on the PlayStation blog on Tuesday morning, pretty early in the morning too, because I remember a buddy of mine was sorry about the Concord, hope you're doing all right with the Concord news. I was what the hell is he talking about? He knew it before I knew it, which was crazy. But he's East Coast, so that's, obviously why. But the director, Ryan Ellis, said on the PlayStation blog, quote, while many qualities of the experience resonated with players, we also recognize that other aspects of the game and our initial launch didn't land the way we intended, end quote. And then Concord will therefore be taken offline, so Sony and Firewalk Studios can, quote, explore options, including those that will better reach our players. And again, it was pulled from the stores, servers went offline. I'm curious how they're doing I'm guessing physical copies, you just probably go, back to GameStop, whatever, sell it back, full refund. But are you shaving?
That was Astro Bot.
Okay, yeah, I was like, what is that vibrating? This guy, he's gaming while he's in the podcast. He was going for a bit, but I was talking over. I was I'll just...
Sorry to distract from the talk. I'm so surprised that they pulled it, and they released a really kind of politically correct statement about how the game, was still a great game. But man, I can't remember the last time something like this happened.
What sucks is I saw the news, okay, it's going to be going offline. Now I bought it on PC, so it's all right, well, I'll get in there and probably play some, because I do enjoy it. I was I get in there, just play a bunch this week since it's going to go away. But then, right before I got home, Steam hits me with the, hey, we've refunded your purchase. And I was damn it. I was you've already refunded it, and I can't even play it after this announcement? It sucked. It's oh, it's going to come offline, and then you just hit me with the refund now. I'm I guess, if more people had done it, it would take longer to get through the list. But obviously there weren't that many players, so it was probably super easy. And it's not it would let me repurchase it. It's just installed on my system, but I couldn't do anything. I was all right, well, I guess I won't play it then.
The thing that would have driven me crazy, which I saw an article about it, was the people that bought it on PlayStation and had some of the trophies, but then could never get the platinum. So they were trying to grind levels by starting matches and instantly killing yourself because you still get experience for completing a match. So whole teams were just jumping off of the map.
Yeah. Now I will say that is a silly way to do it, because I guess you still get some XP for playing, but at least the game mode that they were doing in, not many people were playing anyways. Before this announcement, no one's really playing that game mode. More people in the TDM, the 2 TDM modes, and the the 2 control point modes. That mode that they're playing was I think one's a defuse a bomb, and one's, I think, also a control point, but it's you only have one life to live in the round, and if you die, it's over. But not many people were playing it. More people were in the other queues. So I can understand, like, okay, you just do that, you queue up, but everybody who's queuing up for that list is doing it for the same reason. So it's not like,
Yeah.
at least it's, now there were some instances where some people were doing that as a way to level up prior to this announcement, but not nearly as common. So at least everybody who's doing it, like, they're all in it together to get and some people got the platinum, like, if they were, at least people who already had a lot of game time. But yeah, it's weird, yeah, because, like, again, Cyberpunk 2077 on Xbox One and PS4, like, that game just didn't run well, and it was false advertisement for how it was going to perform on those platforms. So that gets pulled from the stores. Like, that makes sense. A game like, I'm trying to think of The Calling 2, like, it's just a bad game. So then it gets pulled from stores. Something like, the only other game that actually, was good and had a dedicated player base was like Rumbleverse. And Rumbleverse was up for a while before they got pulled offline.
That one did disappear pretty quick, though. I forgot about that game.
It was out for a couple months before it went offline. I think Knockout City was another one. Like, there was a year there where like 3 or 4 multiplayer, free, I think they were free to play, like, games as a service games, Knockout City, Multiverses, Rumbleverse. And then I think Multiverses went offline because, like, okay, they were in like an early access. Like, all right, we're going to come back in like a year. But that was like, a weird dev thing, whatever there. But then, like, again, Cyberpunk is like the only example of a game like straight up being pulled. And then even something like Redfall, like, it's so weird seeing people be like, oh, why is everybody, why are all the Sony ponies defending Concord? But where was this when, Redfall was out and yada yada? I'm like, the difference between the two is, like, Concord, from all intents and purposes, had that vision of what it was going to be from the start. It's a bunch of ex-Bungie people, or some ex-Bungie people, so it's like, okay, that 5v5, it's very, they already have experience with deathmatch, with, Destiny, what have you. They, and obviously Halo. And then it's like, okay, it was a complete game. Like, it came out, it wasn't buggy, it looked great, it was on Unreal Engine 5. I'm really curious, like, if they didn't switch from UE4 to UE5, I wonder how much sooner it would have come out, because I feel like that's one of the problems they have. Like, it came out probably too late for what it was. And then, I mean, we talked about this before last week. We talked about, like, there should have been, but you weren't here, but there should have been, like, the first weekend, because they only had one state of play where they opened with it. And they had 2 closed betas, right? A closed beta and an open beta. But I hardly ever saw any advertisement. I feel like if you're going to be a paid multiplayer game, which is fine, your first weekend should be free. You should have a free weekend so everybody gets in there. Because I'm like, the worst part were people that were like on Steam who like gave it a negative review. I'm like, you played it for 0.5 hours. Like, you can't get a good idea for the meta and all the different characters in half an hour. You're fucking insane. That's like 3 matches or something, or, depending on what you're doing. Like, yeah, that's not a good review. That's not enough information. Like, you have to play it for a while. It's a multiplayer game. But, like, you should have had a free weekend. But, like, it was good. There was no problems. That, it functioned. It looked well, had, great production value. Like, it looks really good and plays really well. Like, it's a finished product. Just people weren't interested. Versus Redfall, where it was like buggy and messy and
I know you talked about it already, but, like, I really do feel like it was the marketing thing, because I feel like I saw one state of play for it where they showed the multiplayer shooter, and it wasn't in-game graphics or gameplay. It was like the pre-rendered video with characters that were kind of generic. And I remember coming out of the state of play and essentially being like, well, what the fuck is this game? Like, I understand it's a hero shooter, but how does it play? What does it look like? What's the actual, like, gameplay? And I don't remember ever seeing that ever. I only remember seeing that state of play with the pre-rendered video.
Well, they had like it was a full, like, they had the teaser video, which was the pre-render, like, hey, Concord. It was the same video that they showed. They teased, I think they opened with Fair Games and they ended with Concord. Fair Games is the Jade Raymond's studio and what they're doing. And it closed with just a little cinematic showing lockers on a ship for Concord. But then later they had like a full-on, here's like actual gameplay, and it looked really good. It's like, okay, this looks good. I see what you're doing, yada. But again, outside of the state of play, and they had a bunch of character trailers go up. Like, I feel like, again, I talk about this with Zaya, like, I have YouTube Premium, and I don't watch sporting events. And I feel like sporting events are usually where you see a lot of big AAA video game commercials, and probably in pre-rolls on YouTube. And I have been watching a little more Twitch live, which I normally don't do. But even the commercials I see there aren't necessarily game focused. So I don't know what it's like on other streaming platforms and whatnot, like any place where there's advertising. Like I haven't noticed it, but yeah, it's like you should have had a free weekend. Like I feel like all paid games with multiplayer or paid multiplayer games are like that's all they are. Like just do a free weekend, or like even if it's free for just PS Plus members or something, like just make it a free, because we talk about like lots of games do that nowadays where it's like I'm always like, oh man, hey, Far Cry has like a free weekend and you could play co-op with people and like you can download it and like that's a single player game, but it has co-op. So it's like, hey, that's that. But then there's like actual multiplayer games that do free weekends, and that happens a lot. And they do it. Ubisoft has done it a lot for just their single player titles, but free weekends I feel like is the way to go. But yeah, it's like it's not like a game that started as at least again, because it wasn't a janky mess and none of the internal information about it, like there was no Bloomberg report, but it's like it doesn't, for all intents and purposes, it seems like this was their vision from day one. It wasn't a single player game like Redfall that got turned into a games as a service. And then it's like, and there was a bunch of, issues at the studio on the back end because of it. And that's why it released in the state it did. This is like, no, the team put together something that came out. It's really good. Well, it's good, but no one is interested in it. And it's just like, yeah, pulling it is just so strange. Because I assume like, oh, they're probably going to put it on like let it go for a bit. And then people always talk about Rainbow Six Siege, but I don't remember Siege had a lot of players at the start, and it wasn't like a big mess. It's just Siege, when Siege came out, it was like everybody was excited for Rainbow Six Patriots, which got canceled, and then we got Siege, and Siege had that big debacle where the first gameplay trailer was like, clearly this is just, baked because it doesn't look like this at all when it released, the standard Ubisoft reveal and actual game comparison. But it was a good game at launch. Like there was nothing wrong with Siege. It's just not what people were expecting. But then over time, it grew. But it wasn't. I don't know why people always refer to that as like a bad game. It's not like it's not like a No Man's Sky where expectations for No Man's Sky were through the roof, and then over time it got better. But yeah, it's so weird that you would just pull it. Like I wonder what kind of operating costs, because right now it's like there's just people there at the studio doing what, like trying to brainstorm ideas. Like aside from just going free to play, like the only thing I can imagine is Sony sitting there like, hey, you're gonna go free to play. Now you have to come up with ideas for skins and a battle pass and like all the standard stuff you need for an FTP games as a service. Like you need
they just totally pulled it though. So like unless they're planning on having some re-release where they call it a different game or something like that, I just don't see how it works. And it seems so weird because you're basically scrapping. I think the number I saw was like 300 million in development costs. Like it just seems like an astoundingly bad move.
But that's what I was saying. Like if they didn't refund, I think pulling it, they rework it, they retool it to be free to play. But then to do that, you have to have all that stuff, the cosmetics for the whales. Like they didn't have that because everything was included within that $40. You got everything, and it wasn't like they had crazy cosmetics to begin with. So now it's like now you have to kind of come up with those flashy cosmetic ideas and weapon skins and what have you to incentivize players to spend money on, a skin store. And like so that's why you refund them, because it's like, okay, we're gonna redesign the progression for cosmetics, but then don't change too much about the gameplay because it looks fine. Maybe they tweak some characters because it was so weird, and nothing to like people like, oh, I don't like the characters. Like, okay, yeah, there's a lot of like the variety of character designs is super wide, kind of like Overwatch. But I saw someone argue like I should like it was on Twitter and they got a lot of traction though, where they were like, oh, the problem with that is like I look at a character and I have no idea what their abilities are, or what they do here. I'm like, motherfucker. I was like, you can look at half of the people in Apex Legends and guess, because the thing was, you should be able to know what their abilities and specials are. I'm like, you couldn't do that with anybody in Valorant or half the people in Apex Legends. Like, it's easy with Lifeline because she's a medic, so she looks like a medic. You know, oh, they must heal somehow. But like, you couldn't tell me what the fuck Revenant does, or a lot of these other people in that game. Like, there's no way you could guess, like, hey, what do you think their ability is? Like, I can't do that even with Valorant. I played that for a bit. It's like, there's no way. It's like, it's just unique designs because, again, you have to have that, be able to call out characters by silhouette in these kind of games, and they have that. And like a lot of, it's like sure they might not be traditional designs, but there's nothing wrong with that. Like if it's first person, play the character. You're not going to see your character. Like, oh, I don't want to be the chubby medic. It's like, who cares? Like, it's.
I
so
mean, I
weird.
saw some comments that the designs just weren't very unique, and I don't know how true that was because I didn't really dive deeply into it, but I could see why you wouldn't want like very generic designs.
They weren't unique. Did these people look at these characters? Like, yeah, sure, Lennox kind of looks like Michael Rooker a bit, but he's more like green skin. But like characters like there's like Itzy, Starchild, One Off. Like there's who's a robot, but he's not like your standard robot style. Like there's a lot of Haymar. There's like a lot of unique character designs. Like it's I don't know what people are talking about. Like the character designs, like sure they might not be your cup of tea, but like they look fantastic in UE5. But like yeah, characters like Itzy look great. Like even though Lennox, does have that Michael Rooker kind of look, like he looks really like his character model looks really good, and a lot of the other ones too. But it's just like, yeah, I don't get it. Like people's issue with the characters there, but
I
whatever.
mean, truthfully, I don't really think it was the characters. I think it was just that the game hit at the worst time for it. Like it had minimal marketing. It had a lot of competitors that were out there and already established, and it just kind of landed at the worst time. So it didn't really differentiate itself. It had like everything going against it, and I think it was just like the perfect storm of things going against the game.
Yeah, and it's not. It's like because I know people aren't happy necessarily with Overwatch 2, but they still kind of play it. Like it's that kind of like love hate relationship people have with that game. But yeah, it's just again, I think Free Weekend would have been good. A little more marketing. Like it should have been at Gamescom or something, like for people to play and get better impressions of. But because like the people that did play it, like who are in gaming journalism or whatever, in the beta, like they like it. Like I've heard people talk about, who enjoyed the game and whatnot, and they'd be like champion it and what have you. But then like in their of course bummed that it's gone. But yeah, it's just yeah, I try to support it day one because I thought like, hey, I'll give this a shot. Jump into. I'm not paying a bunch of hero shooters right now. I'll try a new one, but yeah, now it's gone. So we'll see. I'll be curious to see what happens. It's still going to be in that secret level episode that clearly showed Starchild. That episode's still going to exist, but that comes out in December. So I'm curious, like, is that because they hope they retool it by the time that comes out? Because it has some really interesting lore too, but like it does that thing where you have to go digging for it. Again, kind of like why I don't dig for lore in Souls games. Is like it has like this big old codex system, like you can get all this lore and backstory from each of the characters. Like, okay, that's cool, but maybe they'll do like a single player mode and then have a free to play multiplayer. Like, I don't know what you're gonna do. It's like it'd be kind of cool to get some of this told to me and not have to go in and read every bit of it. But yeah, it's a weird case. Yeah, I don't know. And then of course, then they released Astro Bot this week, and like everybody loves it. So it's such a low to high oddball situation on both ends for Sony. Yeah, I feel bad for the devs though. It's like that sucks, man. Like, because there's nothing you can do.
I don't think any dev ever wants that. I mean, it's just an awful situation because like they're probably literally also just sitting there, like you said, like twiddling their thumbs, like, well, what the fuck now? Are we all getting closed? Are we all losing our jobs? Like, what are we doing next?
Yeah, it sucks. Like and I was talking with someone else. Like the problem, like with these kind of games and existing genres that have a lot of competition or whatever, it's like unless you're a big, well-known studio, or you're like led by some auteur in the industry, if you're doing something that's in that genre and you're a new studio and a new IP, like it's going to be tough if you're not one of those things. Like if you're not a Blizzard or a Naughty Dog or what have you, or you're a Kojima or a Ken Levine or someone, it's like it's going to be tough to go into an existing genre with a new IP and try to stand out. I mean, because I was talking about this, like I was like, oh man, hopefully it doesn't go the way of Disintegrate, which was the other ex-Bungie multiplayer game that just went away.
I don't even remember that.
Yeah, Disintegrate game was oh, you won't remember this, Art, but it was by V1 Interactive. It came out in end of January 2020. UE4. It was a first-person shooter, but like it essentially had the bikes from Destiny. So like when you go on the bikes, it was like had this kind of vehicle combat. But yeah, it was.
I just looked it up. I've never seen this game before. I mean, maybe I have, but it's not ringing any bells.
Yeah, it was the only game released by they shut down in March 2021. So they were. Well, it says it was released. That's weird. I had two different release dates on it. June 2020 is what it says here for my Xbox, Windows, but then they shut down in March 2021. But yeah, just like that one could have been a victim of COVID. It's 3 months into lockdown. People aren't spending money on a game. It's a new IP. It's like, yeah, it's got to be rough. And then they shut down. But yeah, it's Marcus Leto, who is the co-creator of Halo. Like, again, he's a well-known person in the industry. People are usually excited, but yeah, it's that was rough. Yeah, it didn't. Also, I mean, it didn't review too well. It got like 6s. The Metacritic was like 60, 62, 67, depending on the platform. So it didn't do too well. So that was just a case of like games kind of just okay. But yeah, I was like, man, I feel like all the ex-Bungie folks who move on to start new studios and new IP, like, just having a rough go. But anyway, we'll move on from that.
Even Bungie's having a rough go right now.
Yeah. And then moving on to Star Wars Outlaws, the director Julian Girardi has admitted to being, quote, a little disappointed in the review scores for the game, but is committed to making it better. So it came out, and it's kind of getting like a, mid-70s, like it's a good game for Star Wars Outlaws. I know it did have a lot of kind of some bugs initially prior to launch on consoles. There were some, people playing it for like review codes and what have you, showing some of the bugs. And, but yeah, he's like, he obviously recognized like, hey, it might not have connected for some folks, but, we're obviously going to be fixing the game. And I haven't had too many bugs when I was playing it. But I did have like one where I couldn't pick up a data pad, or I couldn't like read it. It was like right there. I kept trying to interact with it. It just wouldn't work. I was like, okay, whatever. I'll just leave this alone. And then I haven't had, again, too many other issues with it. But I know some people, seen some bugs, and then PC obviously runs better. But yeah, I'm just kind of thinking, I was like, man, should I wait until maybe it gets like a patch or two before I go back to it? But I think I was like, nah, I probably won't wait. I'll probably just, stick with it. But I'll talk about that later and what I've been playing. But yeah, I mean, people are playing it, talking about it. Like I've heard plenty of podcasts, people loving it. I've seen people streaming it who big Star Wars fans who are having fun with it. But
I mean, it didn't too bad. It seems like it's a decent game. Just seems like it's not perfect.
Yep. And then the long-awaited patch 7 for Baldur's Gate 3 came out on PC. It's going to take a bit to come to consoles because they got to work everything out. I think also take a bit to come to Mac as well. They got to, for certain, all that stuff. They got to make sure everything works well. But you do have to like, because it adds mod support, people who are using mods usually have to like get rid of all their mods in order to be able to play on the new patch. But it does have like expanded evil endings, some more stuff, a bunch of other quirks and stuff like that. Because it's like a 12 gigabyte PC patch for the game. But I was trying to see here, kind of a small bullet point. They got new cinematic evil endings for truly evil playthroughs. They added their mod manager. They revamped the split screen gameplay. There's been changes to auto mode combat, the UI, some gameplay tweaks and stuff like that. But yeah, I know a lot of people are really excited about that and having a lot of fun with the evil Karlach origin character ending is supposed to be pretty good. I probably won't play like an evil Karlach, but I'll have to watch it and see what that's like after I finish my own evil playthrough. So I'm curious, like, how it'll work. Like, okay, they patched it, and I'm at the start of Act 3 on my evil run. So I'm like, okay, now will they apply? Like, I'm assuming they will. Like, they'll give me if I do the truly evil route, but I'll be curious to see there. But yeah, lots of people enjoying that patch. Looking forward to it.
I was thinking this is the time to go back to Baldur's Gate, but then I'm like, or is it the time to go back to No Man's Sky? It's the revisiting all the old games, apparently.
Yep. Then like I said, Astro Bot came out this week. That was the new release. But aside from other news bits, there wasn't a whole lot else. I'm trying to go through here and see if there's any other things that stood out. Yeah, not a whole lot. Just that's pretty much it. Just news about the patch 7, Starfield's new planet having over 50 locations according to Bethesda. Like, all right, that's great. I know the Call of Duty Black Ops 6 beta is going on. People are enjoying that, but I'm not playing that. Yeah, all right. Well, from there, go ahead and move on to what we've been playing. Since you've been out, we'll go ahead and start with you. I know you said you picked up Astro Bot.
Yeah, I've been playing through Astro Bot. I think I'm actually about like halfway through the game so far. I really enjoy it. It's a very lighthearted, fun game. in terms of like platforming difficulty, not platforming, but like in terms of like kid-friendly gameplay, it's like a step down from Ratchet and Clank. So it's a pretty easy game, but it's really fun. It's really cute. It has a lot of fun little quirks. You heard the controller vibrating before. It uses great use of the controller and the haptic feedback. Uh, it feels like every time you kind of explore a level, you find something just a little bit new, and it's just packed full of like not cameo, well, Easter eggs, cameos, pretty much everything PlayStation. Like it's absolutely packed full of PlayStation hints and things to discover if you have played a bunch of Sony games. So I'm really enjoying it. It's a lot of fun. I wish it was like a tiny bit more challenging. That's my only critique, but it's also not geared towards adults, right? Like it's geared towards kids, so you can't really critique that aspect of it too much. But yeah.
I've heard it gets harder though. Like there are some actual hard levels. I mean, because even Sackboy Big Adventure had that. Where like, yeah, a lot of levels are pretty easy, but there are some levels like, okay, this is actually pretty challenging. Or even like the time trials. Like I've heard there's some difficulty in Astro Bot. Maybe you just haven't gotten there yet.
I think I'm halfway through the game, and the only difficult thing I found so far are there these like hidden not circle levels, but like shape levels where it's the cross, the square, the triangle, and the circle from the controller, and they each have like hidden levels, and those ones are a little bit more tricky. But those are really the only thing I found in the game that's actually tricky so far. The actual like levels themselves, I haven't found to be challenging. Which isn't to say they get harder or not, but I do think that's my like one tiny little comment about the game is, I wish it was one step more difficult or like more complex. But again, it's geared towards a younger audience, so I don't really think that's a valid critique of the game. It's definitely not supposed to be, a Souls game. It's supposed to be a game that the family can enjoy, and it's designed around that.
Yeah, everyone's loving it. Like it's got great. I think it's like 95 on Metacritic or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's really well made. There's no bugs. There's no glitches. The controller feedback is great. The sound design is great. The music is really catchy. They have these levels that are themed around other PlayStation games that I won't spoil, but like they've picked out a handful of PlayStation games and themed levels around them, and they're really cute and really funny. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I'll probably play it a bit more today. I don't really know how long it is. It seems like it's a pretty short game unless you go for all of the collectibles, which I probably will since I'm enjoying it thus far.
Yeah, I got to pick it up. I just haven't picked it up yet. I know my kid's looking forward to playing it. I was debating one night. I was like, this should be like a stream game. I was like, nah, I probably won't stream this game. I'll just play it in my own time. It'll be easier that way.
Yeah.
I know people are streaming, but I was like, I don't want to stream it. I just want to play and enjoy it. And have fun with that. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting in there. Yeah, so I have been playing since Concord went down. I was like, okay, I couldn't play it. I was trying to think like what I wanted to play, and I was playing Star Wars Outlaws at the that first night it was down. And I was like, okay, there's a lot you could do like in the first planet you go to. But I'm like, I want to get off this planet really because I hear a lot of people like say, just get off the planet first because then you kind of progress to get some, maybe some access to more stuff perhaps, or get to the second planet, what have you. It's like, okay, well, the first objective is like fix the ship to get off the planet. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to focus on that because the way right now, the way they do it, it's like, I kind of like they have this loyalty system to like, there's like 3 bounty factions, the Crimson Dawn, the Pikes, and the Hutts. And it's like you do a job for them and it like raises your standing with one, but lowers your standing with the other. And then you could, in some cases, you could like double cross, like you steal something or you go to do something. Like I was on a mission where it's like, go blow up this place's like fuel reserve or something like that. But then on my way there, I find like some information and then it's like, ooh, you could probably give that information to one of the other 2 syndicates that versus the one you're blowing up. And it's like, okay, that could be really cool. So I was like, okay, I'll kind of like double play it where I'm like, oh, hey, yeah, I blew up their stuff, but there was nothing else there. But then I gave it to the other side. And so it's kind of fun, like, raise your standing with one. And you get like, as you keep raising your standing, you'll unlock stuff as it gets higher. But the problem I find that it does is like, at least in the first planet, is when you're neutral, usually like each region will have kind of like each syndicate will have like their own little like section of like the major city hub. And if you're at neutral standing with them, like you can't just freely walk in there because you're not part of that group. Okay, that makes sense. So it's like if you have a mission that requires you to do something, like steal something, you have to like sneak in. I'm like, okay, that's cool. I like that. And it's like, or alternatively, you can do something where like I had a mission where I chose like one faction, I got in good standing with them, so now I can walk around their place like willy nilly and be just fine. But then the next mission I had was like, oh, go steal some. We need to fix a ship, but the thing we need is over at you can get it from two places, either the place you have good standing with or the place that you don't. And I'm like, well, I didn't want to upset the people that I was already siding with, the Crimson Dawn. So I was like, but I could have just had an easy mission. I could just walk through their place and then just sneak into their vault where that thing I need is. So it's like it kind of gives you the option, like, do you want to play it easy and risk, upsetting the faction you're siding with, or go the more difficult route of having to sneak in through the main hub and into the vault area? And I'm like, I kind of like that little trade-off. But then the downside is when you get into the open world, each faction has like their own little section that they kind of control, like their own territory. So like I had this one quest, like, oh, when I went to the Pikes to go steal the thing for my ship, I came across like this big locked door that requires 3 keys that was in their vault. And it's like, oh, this vault, and I found a data pad. It's like, it talks about the 3 keys and who has them. And so the character learns like, oh, if I want to break into this vault, I got to find these 3 keys from each of the people that, Pike folks who have them. So I can see on the world map, like where they are. And so I'm like, okay, there's 1 key. It's in this location. So I'm heading that way. But soon I enter that territory in the open world. So that every time like a Pike speeder bike, or there's like a itty bitty Pike outpost on the way to like the main area I'm trying to go get into, they'll see me and then aggro me because I'm like, obviously I'm in negative standing with them. But then so I either can fight them or I can run away. But obviously I get to where I need to go. I have to fight my way in because I don't know where to sneak in yet. So I just like fought my way in. But every time I'm killing people, it just keeps lowering my standing with the Pikes. So I'm like,
so you're basically trapped of like lowering your standing without.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I can't. Now it doesn't lower as much as like the mission loyalty does. So it's like, okay, it's not like each kill's like, oh, now you're in the next level of negative standings. But it is frustrating to know that like, okay, obviously I don't care about this group, but if something were to change or I want to change in the future, now there are missions where like, so I was doing some stuff for my group and then I get a call from like, I think one of the Huts representatives, and they're like, hey, come meet me here. Like, why? So you can, kill me or whatever because you don't like. It's like, nah, it's about making peace, because now I'm in the second tier of negative standing with them. So I think it's like a peace offering, like, hey, do this mission for us and we'll go back up. Because I know someone said on a podcast, you can have max positive rank with each of the factions. Obviously, I'm just in the early game, so you can't get there yet. So this is like the trade-off. So I'm like, okay, so clearly there are missions where you can, even though you're negative standing, they'll give you a mission to go do something that will get it back up. Like, okay, that's good. Although I did see a tweet from Ammunition, a streamer, who was saying like she had a bit of annoyance where the system was kind of annoying her, where it was like she had bad standing with the Huts, so they offer her a mission to increase it, but to get the mission, she had to go into their territory but then of course they're mad at her, so like she's still killing it. So it kind of bugged her, like they wouldn't just give her like, hey, a day pass to come into their their canteen or whatever. It's like, I was like, oh, I hope that doesn't happen for me. But yeah, I do have issues with like some of the sneaking. I feel like sneaking around isn't quite what I want. Like maybe there's more, as they say, verbs. No, I'm hoping like there's more options in the future. Like using Nyx is really fun as a way to like distract guards. I like telling, like, you can tell Nyx to attack, and like Nyx will like jump on the person's head and kind of wrestle them, and then you can just run up, hit square, and knock them out. Or you can tell Nyx to like go to a spot and distract people. So if you want to like, if there's 2 people, usually I'll tell like Nyx, go over there, distract them, and it like gives you a clear line of who they're distracting, and they'll do something. Then that person walks away, and then I go up and I sneak and I take out the other person, and then quickly run over and take out the one before they're getting done distracted. So there are some fun aspects there, but I feel like the sneaking in this one mission I did last night in this Imperial base wasn't quite what I wanted, because like you can't really silently kill people. Like I'm so used to like, oh, if it's by the people that did Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, and the Division. And it's like, okay, in those games, I have like silenced weapons, or in Avatar, I have a bow. I can silently take out enemies as I clear out a base. I can't. There's no silent blaster in Star Wars, so like I can't.
There's no like sneak up behind them and strangle them, or like
There is,
stealth
but
tool.
there's no like there's no there's Nyx to help distract us. Like Nyx is essentially your rock, but a rock that has much more utility. But I can't like silently snipe someone far away or shoot him with a bow. Like I can't do the typical kill because obviously one that's like not the character really to like just go around kill everybody. But if shit goes sideways, like you do kill everyone. But like in this mission, like the alarm can't get raised in the area it was like that was part of the objective, and if it does, it makes you restart the checkpoint. But I'm like, so it kind of makes it. I feel like enemy placement should have been tweaked a bit. I don't know. I feel like I would have done it a little different because I did have some trouble with that section. I had to like restart a couple times, kind of choose, okay, I got to change up how I'm doing this. But I feel like, yeah, like maybe later there's a tool that, because you do get an alternative fire to your blaster early on after a mission where like you can shoot like this electrical stun bit, but it doesn't stun right away. You can stun with R1. R1 does do a stun, but I don't know if can be heard. It has a recharge on it. So there's like an R1 stun blast that you can do. But like if there's two people next to each other, I guess maybe I can send Nyx to one, attack them, blast the other one, and hopefully it doesn't make noise and like alert the other guards. I'll have to try that out. But like I'm hoping maybe there's like a electric dart I could shoot or something. Like I don't know. Like seems like something that a bounty hunter would have. Like Boba Fett would just shoot like a pacifying electric dart at someone in the neck or what have you, and take them down. Like maybe you get that later, but right now I don't have that. But I feel like even in like a Far Cry or Avatar or these other games from Ubisoft, or Assassin's Creed, I can quickly take out enemies in the early game silently. So it's like that's fine, whatever. I got to deal with that. So what I'm trying to do is just progress with the main story to get like maybe some of those unlocks I need. Because I feel like I know some people have said like the first. And I know you never want to hear this. It's like, oh, that first couple hours, like I just didn't enjoy the game. But once I got off that planet and it opened up, it's like then it got really good. It's like, oh, you really clearly need to retool your opening of this game. But anyways, I did play some more of it play some more of it last night or the other night or yesterday, I should say. And I did have a lot more fun. I really don't like the ship controls, especially after playing so much No Man's Sky. I really hate the controls, and there isn't a good alternative in the control menu for the ship, but I really don't like the ship controls.
Wait, you don't like them in No Man's Sky, or
I don't like them in Star Wars.
Okay.
No Man's Sky is really good. I don't like them in Star Wars. I don't like the controls. Like the way it works is you press forward on the left stick to accelerate, and then you don't hold it. You just push it up like, okay, this increase your speed up to max, and you press it down to come to a halt. And then left and right are, what are left and right? I want to say you slightly turn, but then you have pitch up and down with like it just I don't like go to be on the stick. Like go should be R2. Like that should be my engines. I hold R2 for the engines.
R2 or like X, and then everything else is ship controls.
And then left, up, and down is the pitch controls. Is what I want. Like very similar to No Man's Sky, but it's not that. So it just really bugs me. And I get because they also have like, okay, well, you have other actions you can do with those buttons. So you kind of got to. It's kind of like in Concord, like the ping button was the touchpad, whereas in like Apex Legends, it's L1, or R1. But the reason it can't be that in Concord is because R1 and L1 are your two different abilities that you have. So it's like, okay, you have two different abilities, whereas you only have one ability in Apex. So it's like you have to put it somewhere, put it on the touchpad, which is a weird spot to put a ping. Anyways, but yeah, so like I don't like the ship controls. I had a weird moment where like you go to this mission, you got to go to space to fake deliver some cargo, but you approach this Imperial like space station, and they're like, "Whoa, you better slow down!" Like, "Oh, we got some cargo." Like, "Oh, follow the TIE fighter escort." So I follow this TIE fighter, and I watched someone play it yesterday, the same mission, and the TIE fighter just took them straight to the docking station. When I did it, TIE fighter lost his pathing and just took me on the most roundabout way, crashed into a ship, just not pathing properly to the objective. And I'm like, the fuck are we going, man? Like, he's trying to lose it. It was so weird. And like, you had to follow him or else you failed the mission. It's like, what is this TIE fighter doing? It was so weird. So that was like an odd bug. But yeah, I did enjoy it a little more. Like I said, using Nix in certain sections is really nice, especially for the sneaking around in corridors and other sections. It was just this one open area. I feel like it should have been laid out differently. I get that they want it to be a challenge, but I felt like their stealth tools just didn't quite work in that area. They have this mini game where you have to like Guitar Hero hit R2 at like the perfect time and see what it be. I turned that off. I'm like, I can't do this anymore because I was complaining with Zaya, like you can't like calibrate it. So I feel like there's always a lag. Like I have to hit the button quicker. Like I have to hit the button when I know the light's going to beep, not when it beeps. You know, like in Guitar Hero where you can calibrate it to work that way. So I hated it.
You're trying to guess for it as opposed to just hitting the button when it's actually.
Exactly. And it's real bad. And I don't like it at all. So I'm like, but you just turn it off to where you just fucking hit R2, like just spam it and it just does the input automatically. I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. So I turned that off. But I'm looking forward to giving it, another shot. I do like exploring the world. It's kind of nice. I crashed the hell out of that bike the first couple hours I was playing. I don't think I have those on stream of a lot of, but like I would crash that thing all the time. I'd be like, God damn it. And like Nick's or the main character would fall off it. And it was just like, all right, I guess I'm just not good at driving. But I was talking about it. Another glitch I had, which I talked about last week, was like I was like some Imperial troopers are coming in to take back some contraband from this group of like pirates or whatever. But you can intercept the radio signal and go just steal the stuff yourself while they're fighting. But when it landed, all the troopers spawned underground, so like they didn't actually get in the combat. But I could see all their question marks icons underground, which is really funny. I do like some of the stuff it does where, and I think other Ubisoft games have done this where like, the objective marker is up on your compass, but if you hit up, it'll bring it down into the world. So like if you know like, hey, something's 20 meters ahead this direction north, I want to see exactly where. You just hit up and like it moves to whatever building you're actually trying to go to. So I kind of like that. Like you can have it both ways. Like if you want it to be there, it'll be there. If you don't, it only shows up for like a bit and then it goes away. So it's kind of nice to be like, hey, don't just clutter my screen with icons, which is cool. I like that. But yeah, I after that I decided to play because like, okay, I'm gonna take a break from Star Wars. I don't want to stream it right now. And I decided to restart Chants of Sennaar. And so I played it about a year ago. I only played
Chants of Sennaar?
Yeah.
I don't think I've even heard of this.
It came out on PC about a year ago. I want to say October of last year. It came out on console a few months later, I believe. I have it on PC. I watched Northern Lion play it way back, and that's what prompted me to play it. But I only ever got through the first level or the first area. And then I was like, oh, you know what? I'm going to restart it and play this. And there's like no one else streaming it because obviously it's been a year later. So I played that this entire week. I put all the VODs on YouTube. I mean, you can just look up a trailer for what it is. But essentially it's a game where like...
Yeah, I was going to say, what type of game is it?
It's like it's a puzzle, like language translator kind of game. It's like you go in and you're trying to learn a language through context and environment. So like the first clue you come across is there's a switch and a door, and the door's closed, and next to the switch it has two symbols. And there's a switch or symbol next to where the top part of the switch, where the switch currently is positioned, and then if you move the switch down, the door opens. It's by the other symbols. You can kind of infer, okay, either the symbols mean up or down, or they can mean open or close. And so what you do is you have a journal that you open up and you type in what you think it is. So every time you see that symbol, it'll show like whatever your guess is for it. And then as you play and you see that symbol in other situations, like you can learn like, oh, this does mean open or closed, or this symbol clearly means me. This one means you. And you learn it just by playing. So it's really fun. And the game kind of, once you gather enough symbols and have seen it in enough context, the game will kind of quiz you and be like, hey, here's 3 pictures, like a door, a lock, something else. And like of all the symbols you have, you try to put them in and match them to the right ones. But they all have to be correct. And if they're correct, it'll give you the proper translations of I think this one is like, I'm trying to think of like a good example that's not just the exact word, but it's like there's one for like the symbol kind of looks like an uppercase L laying down on its back, but with a dot above the top of it, as if it was an eye. So it's like, okay, that kind of looks like a person lying down who's dead. So your guess could be dead, death. And then later you find that same symbol, but it's kind of in a box. So you assume, okay, it's in a box. It must be cemetery or graveyard. So you can kind of put in your guess there. And then later you come across an actual graveyard. You can see the sign above it indicating the location. You're like, okay, it must be this. And then later it'll quiz you and then give you the correct translation. But
that seems like a really cool idea for a game.
Yeah, it's really fun. It's like it's a lot of the first language is pretty intuitive too. Like it'll tell you, like, again, the idea of anytime you see a symbol, you guess what it is. If you see that symbol in a box, typically that means like, okay, there is one that was really tough for like the symbol that's in the box for the what it's trying to tell me. It didn't match because the symbol itself like was a different word. But some of the symbols, like once you solve, realize what they are, it's like, okay, I can see how the symbol kind of looks because it's very simple. It looks like what it is. Like it kind of, okay, I get it now. And then after each section, you go to a new section and the language changes. But they usually start you off with like a two sentences, and then of the old language you learned, and then at the bottom the new language, which is an exact translation of that old language. You can kind of infer like, okay, if this is like, warriors like music in the old language, okay, these symbols must match 1-to-1 warriors like music, so you put them in there. That's your guess of what they are, and yada yada. But then there are some quirks where like the way they do pluralization in the first language is just double the same symbol. But when they do plurals in the second language, they have a symbol for plural. But instead of like an S in English, it goes before the symbol. But then later on, the third language is like the plural goes after the symbol. But once you get to the third language, I was like, oh my God. When I got to the third, like I'd never gotten that far. I was like, I got to the third language, like, holy shit. I was like, it became like so much more complicated. And I was like, it did have like an opening sign to help me get my ground footing and get my foothold on the situation, but I didn't solve it right away. And also a good thing to do is like, even if you don't know what something is, like, because when you talk to people, it'll be like, if they say like 4 symbols, but only 2 of them, it'll say like ... the word you think you know, ... and like the other word. So you can kind of are like, okay, what are they saying? Okay, well, they look kind of sad. So maybe they're sad about something. Maybe the symbol means sad. Maybe they're looking for something. And just, it often helps just to throw in a guess, even if it's just something random, just throw something in. Because then when it pops up in that sentence, it's like, well, clearly this word doesn't make any sense. So let's make it a different word. And yada yada. But yeah, I really like it. I finished it last night. There are some, it's fun because like it's part solving the language, and you don't even have to do.
Seems like a really unique game.
Yeah, it is. I'm surprised it isn't bigger, but I guess it's like an indie game. But like it's not even like the language necessarily matters. Like there's obviously a trophy or an achievements for like solving 100% of the languages as you go through. But there are also like puzzles, like, oh, I need to do this, I have to look for something, and like it's pretty basic puzzles in the first area. Gets a little more complicated in the second one, where it's like, okay, a lot of puzzles are kind of linked together. Like, oh, I found this, but I can't do anything with it yet. Oh, I found this thing that clearly has symbols linking to the other thing I found, but it also has a locked door. I can't figure it out. Okay, and then you solve that locked door, and it kind of all changes together. They don't necessarily all go together, but they're all linked in some fashion, which I really like. So it's like these puzzles that all kind of work together. And then later, like the area I got to last, like there's way more puzzle solving in it than what I had done previously. So I did spend quite a while in there trying to solve some stuff. And then it went places I wasn't expecting the game to go, which I guess I should have seen coming, considering the way they do fast travel in the game. I'm like, okay, well, this is here. I should have guessed there's got to be clearly more to what's going on. But yeah, it definitely went some places I wasn't expecting. But yeah, it was fun. I really like the game. I definitely say check it out. It's not that expensive, I don't think. It could be, I'd say if you have it on PC, get it there, just because you have to do a lot of typing. I don't know how annoying it would be to have to type out on the keypad, unless you have like a keyboard plugged into your.
How many words are there? Is it something where it's like?
Lot.
Okay, so it's not like you're deciphering 20 words.
Yeah, so let me see if I can find like a good so I'll put a picture in chat.
Yeah, because if it's a good amount of words, I can't imagine playing it.
Yeah, here's like a screenshot where like you can see, okay, all the ones in white are ones that I've correctly solved. All the ones in black are like ones that I found, but I don't know I haven't confirmed, but you can see like all the empty dots is like how many characters, and you find them pretty quick.
So that's one language that you're showing?
That's the first zone's language, yes.
Okay.
And again, it's not that bad. Like, you don't even have to necessarily put in anything if you don't want to. You could just kind of remember, if that helps, because once the, like right now, the book in the picture, people won't be able to see it, but in this book, it's prompted you like, hey, you've learned enough and you've done enough of each of these activities for the words that I'm looking for. Like, this kid was playing hide and seek, that you should know what these are. So try to guess. And so even if you didn't put anything in there, you can just kind of like throw in the symbols. And you could brute force your way through it and just chuck in the symbols if you wanted. But I try not to do that, just so I don't like, cheat the system. But yeah, I'd say give it a shot. It might not be too bad on PlayStation. Maybe you could do like, well, I don't have voice to text, but do it on a laptop. It's got to be like a low requirement. But yeah, it's a really fun game. I like it a lot. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with that. I think I almost had all the trophies for achievements, but I was like, because I wasn't playing on PlayStation, I wasn't like incentivized to get the platinum. Like, I'm not going to worry about getting all of them. I wasn't, and it saves like right at the end. So if you go back, you can just go ahead and get, if you got the best ending. I think there's 2 endings. But yeah, it's a good game though. I really enjoyed it. But yeah, that third language
seems unique.
Yeah. That third language really gave me a run for my money. But it's definitely one of those games like I would love to, like when I beat Viewfinder, I wanted to watch people play Viewfinder just to see how like their mind works with the puzzle solving. And then like I watched NL play this, so then then I played it. But like I'd like to watch other people play it just to see how quickly they might. Like I saw, like, again, not many people were streaming it the nights I were, but I did see yesterday like there was a stream that said like 2 language professors see if they could play this game or whatever, but I didn't actually watch it because I was streaming at the same time. So I'm curious, like, how other people solve, play it and solve it, and how intuitive it is for them. But I had one where like I was so adamant that this symbol has to mean this. Like I had the other 3 purposes, like this one must mean this, but like I missed the fact that it's actually this symbol. I should have guessed it, but I didn't until the next day. I was like, okay, I need to relook at this and yada yada. But yeah, it was good times. Oh yeah, I forgot to talk about there's that No Man's Sky Aquarius update that's coming with fishing. That's gonna be added soon.
They keep adding more to that game. I keep wanting to come back and play it. I think I've mentioned this before, but consistently every single year for the past few years, No Man's Sky is always like my number 2 most played game. Usually my number 1 most played game for the year is like a Souls type game, like an Elden Ring, or just like a big RPG I can sink my time into. But like consistently every year, I'm shocked by how much time I've put into No Man's Sky just from going back and playing and starting over again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely want to get back in that. Yeah, I think, as I mentioned this before, back when I was first playing Chants of Sennaar, but like they had like this mini game at one point, which I don't think you have to play the game. Like it's not even part of anything. It's just like someone's like, hey, you want to play this game? And it's like this very rudimentary like lever puzzle thing in the thing, but it's just like Flappy Bird. But if it was like made in ancient times, where it's like you're just moving rods to get the bird up and down, it was so funny. It's like, this is just Flappy Bird. It's in this game. What the hell? It was really funny. But yeah, it's fun. I like the game a lot. Yeah. Oh, I also mentioned so Space Marine 2 came out, and I know that's people have been enjoying that. But like, there's a limited edition Space Marine PS5 that's like not just like, oh, here's the the panels, the different color. It's like a fully customized, themed PS5, which looks out of control. Yeah, I think they're doing a giveaway for that. But that thing looks nuts. You look that up. And then yeah, just beat that. I did. So I was like, okay, I got the refund, and I was like, okay, what am I going to do with this refund? Because it's on Steam. They didn't, instead of putting it on my card, they gave it to me in Steam credit, which is a little frustrating.
That's really annoying.
Because it's going to be like, okay, if I got a refund on my card, I'll use that to buy Astro Bot and just get Astro Bot now. But I was like, okay, it's on Steam. All right. So I was like, okay, Frostpunk 2 comes out at the end of this month, or 2 weekends from now. I was like, okay, I'll get that, but that's only like $40 or something like that. And then Forever Skies was discounted. They just got a new combat update in early access, and it was like 25% off. And that is supposed to release in 1.0 at some point this year, as well as on console. But I wanted to play it on. I was like, you know what? I'll just get it here and just play it on PC. So I picked that up while that was on sale. So I'm gonna play that next. It's probably gonna be the next game I'm I try streaming, but because I've been wanting to play that. I was just like, man, when's that 1.0 version going to come out? But so I look forward to playing that game because that game looks like a lot of fun. And yes, that's what I do with the money there. But yeah, looking forward to playing Astro Bot. Not sure when I'll get to it, but I'll get to it, and then
Be a good game to play with your kid too.
yeah. Well, he'll probably just want us to play a bunch by himself. But yeah, it's funny. I was watching there's this React group called Bad Medicine, and they've started doing gaming recently. And one of the games they started playing, they like did a whole watch series where like they watched all the cinematics for every God of War game up to 2018, and they started playing God of War 2018. And it was really funny watching them, go back to Freya's house with Mimir, and then one of the guys is like, he's like, man, it's interesting how you go past stuff early on and come back to it later, because they got the ability to like, remove some of the environmental, like the bramble and stuff like that with Atreus. And I'm like, yeah, they're being introduced to that concept of Metroidvanias, like the aspects of not being able to do something early on until you get the ability unlocked later. It was really funny.
I mean, it was kind of a unique thing for God of not unique, but like the new God of Wars did it really well.
Yeah, but it's just funny, like they because they're not like they weren't huge gamers, so they had no idea of the concept, which was funny. And then I was watching someone when I was watching this person stream Star Wars. YouTube has this feature, and I don't know how long it's been there because I don't watch YouTube live streams, but they have this feature where like if you tune in, it'll give you like an AI generated chat summary of like what the chat is talking about. And so it's not like, but it's not
weird
Gen AI.
And creepy.
It's just like, hey, these are like, here's some common phrases, but it's really cool. It's like people saying how much they like. It's like, it says it's like it's clearly in beta or something, whatever. So like it clarifies like it's not perfect. But I looked at it, it's like, oh, people are saying how much they're enjoying the game or talking about this if there's a particular comment, or like, and I was curious, like, oh, how quickly does this refresh? And there wasn't like a ton of people in chat. So I like went back to it later, and like some of it was still the same, but a little bit it was different. Like people talking about this, so they must have like the streamer must have changed subjects or what have you. But I was like, that's really cool. Like I wish Twitch kind of had that, especially for like big streamers where it's just like chat is just going off and you just like, PogChamp or whatever, like nothing important. But like if people are actually saying stuff that you just can't catch, it'd be nice to have. It was cool to see like a little summary of like, here's what some people are talking about. It's like the majority of people are talking about this, based on probably like a calculation of how many times certain words or phrases were said by different people, and then put in orders. Like, this is kind of cool. I kind of like this because again, it's not generative AI. It's just analyzing what's already in chat. It's just a word. Essentially, it seems like a word count that turns that word count into a summary. I thought that was really cool. I was like, this is a cool feature, especially if you tune in like late to a stream and you have no idea what I miss. It's like, oh, it's kind of cool. But again, I don't watch too many YouTube live streams, so at all. But it was an interesting feature. But yeah, that's all the notes I had. I don't have too much else. Just trying to go through and see. Man, I love the. So I realized since I've been streaming a bit, like how I close my window, obviously, so I'm not being obnoxious to the neighbors talking and what have you, like our other neighbor. But I realized, like, damn, it gets warm pretty quick when you got like, my key light, my ring light on, playing a game, I'm streaming, all my stuff's on. It gets kind of warm here, but I have a little fan under my desk, and I like the Elgato noise suppression like works wonders, man. It just cuts that shit out. Like you can't hear it at all. Even on high blast, when I wouldn't like point it at me, but I like pointed it at me and was listening. I was like, yeah, it's just not there. And it's not even one of those things where like it picks it up when I talk. Like if I just had a simple noise gate, it's just gone. It just removes it. I was like, this is phenomenal. I was like, this is such a good feature just to get rid of obnoxious little noises like rumbling of controllers. No, I'm just kidding. But
yeah, I knew you were gonna say that.
No, it was because it's funny because like I was watching Northern Lion play a game where it's like an Office Among Us, and he like had a fan on, so his mic was just constant fan. I was like, man, this guy's using Elgato mic. Like, just turn on noise suppression, so it gets rid of that dang fan.
I was sitting there while I was playing Astro Bot, and I was like, man, this rumble is actually really intense. He's going to comment on it. There's no way he doesn't hear this.
Yeah, I didn't know what it was at first because, like I said, I couldn't tell it was rumble. It was just like weird. Again, it sounded like maybe like you turned on a electric shaver or something. I was like, well, I'll just keep talking. Maybe.
No, it was really intense. I was like, I can't play this stealthily. It's too intense.
Yeah, you got to like go in the settings and dial down the Like, oh man, that's one thing that annoys me. And I mentioned it last week is like I turned off the trigger effects in Star Wars Outlaws. I'm like, I don't want to deal with this. Like it's not the kind of game I want trigger effects for. But when you're on the speeder bike, like the R2 trigger effect still activates slightly, even though I like turn it off. I'm like, what the hell? So I was like, what I was doing was I would turn on, with my Pro controller, I would just turn on the, or I would reduce the range in which you have to pull R2 to actually engage, activate it. So I was like, that'll help just bypass the need to even worry about trigger effects on the dang bike. But yeah. All right. And I know the other thing I saw is rumors. I mean, we talked about rumors last week as well. And I think the one before, like just small rumors, but like people are saying like, oh, the PS5 Pro will be revealed this month and yada yada. And I'm like, oh, we'll see. Like I'm really.
I don't know if I would need a PS5 Pro this time around. I feel like PS4 Pro, it made sense. I can't really think of any games where I've been like, wow, you've really maxed out the PS5. We need a Pro version.
Yeah, like I was talking with Zaya about it. Like when the Pro came out, like I was playing a bunch of multiplayer games and like that's where it was beneficial. Like I had better FPS in Battlefield 1. It was a better experience. And, obviously like then Horizon came out and it's like, okay, it'll just look better because of checkerboard running. Like there's clear visual reasons why. But yeah, now I'm like, I don't know. Like the only thing I can see is, okay, the games that you play that have like, upper resolution scaling limit of like 1440p, it's like, okay, maybe they can go 4K. So now instead of being 1080p to 1440p dynamic resolution scaling, you get 1440 to 4K. It's like, okay, that's a little better. But is that worth a new console? Like, I don't know what else you're going to have to do, to get me in unless somehow it has like improved like FSR 3 or something. Like, I don't know what you're going to have. And like, I feel like that would be like a new console thing.
And the rumors I've seen also say that it won't have a disk drive again. And I'm like, well, it just doesn't feel like a step forward for a Pro version. I want it more efficient, less energy usage, more powerful, still a disk drive, and slimmer. Like all of those, and I get a Pro version. If it doesn't have like pretty much all of them, I don't really care.
Yeah. I don't know. Like I wouldn't like getting one last time made sense for me, but now it's like, yeah, I don't know. You'll have to like do something because right now I'm just like, I don't know what I'd do. Like it's not for me. I'm sure it could be for someone else, but just yeah, it's not for me. So, but I'll be really curious because I'll have to show something. And like when they showed like Horizon, like okay, it was a good showcase to show the difference for the PS4 Pro. But yeah, I'm wondering what they're going to show for PS5 Pro because it'll have to be first party stuff, maybe a third party game, but yeah, it has to be like stuff that you're working on. Like I don't know, maybe a patch for games that have already come out, like God of War, Ragnarok, or something. But we'll see. But anyways, all right. Well, we can go ahead and wrap it up there. I don't have any other things to go over and know the notes. Hopefully, I'll pick up. Maybe we'll see if I pick up Astro Bot this week. But yeah, you can give your more impressions on it because you'll probably beat it before the next episode, and then
I think I will.
Hopefully, I can get into Forever Skies so I can talk about that, and then maybe play some more Star Wars Outlaws this week as well. But all right, well, we'll go on and wrap it up there. So thank you all for tuning and listening. Thank you, Isli, for joining.
Yep.
And we'll see you all next time.
Later.